Hello everyone, my name is Paul Third. That chap over there is Ed Thorne, and this week we are going to continue our series of studio gear under a certain budget. Essentially, we have decided to come up with this series because we kind of all love gear, we all love buying shit, and we know that a lot of our audience also likes to buy a lot of audio gear, but obviously gear sluts. We all love you, though. We all love you, right? Maybe not the gear sluts guys, but there's a slight maybe place, a back corner.
Moving on quickly.
There's a back corner for you guys somewhere in this podcast. But we're going to continue. Last week was £1,000. This week we're going to do £5,000. So we're going to think about a budget of £5,000. The best setup we would have for speakers and monitors separately. So same as last week. So I'm going to go first and I'll go through speakers, right? So a budget of £5,000 with speakers. Now, Ed.
Can I just interrupt?
Yes.
If anyone was wondering why I normally do the intros, it's because usually I don't offend everyone within the first minute of starting the podcast. On that ginger bombshell, Paul, carry on.
Ed's got a bit of a sore throat, so I'm going to take the lead duties for this week. But yeah, I'll go first with the speakers. Now, I'm very, very surprised, Ed, at how much I've been able to squeeze out of £5,000 here. And what's amazing...
I have no doubt. I mean, if anyone can make the money go a long way, it's fucking you, Paul.
The tight Scotsman. Now, what's interesting is that essentially what I'm going to tell you for a £5,000 budget is the setup I've got right now, which I suppose is the best recommended setup that I can give you. Essentially, this is my whole setup. For under £5,000.
Hang on, you're just going to reel off your own studio?
Yeah, but again, it's quite apt. Again, I'm recommending stuff
argue
that I know.
Cheating, but you could also argue that that's very fortunate for yourself. So
I would argue genius, to be honest with you. But let's get into it, right? So in this setup, I have got 3 pairs of monitors under £5,000, which is what I've got in this room. 3 pairs of monitors.
Oh, okay. As always, we've gone for polar opposite ideas then.
We spoke off air and I was like, I guarantee I already kind of have an idea what yours is going to be. Now, we'll go for the cheapest first. So the cheapest monitors that I'm going to have in this £5,000 budget are the PreSonus Eris Studio 8. They are £400 a pair. And I use them primarily for tracking. Now, I always think it's a good idea if you're going to have clients in there and you're going to be doing a bit of tracking or production, that you have speakers that have a very wide sweet spot. Now, the PreSonus Eris Studio 8s are very interesting because they don't work near field for me at all. When I've got them in the near field position, they sound overly harsh and I kind of feel like I'm fighting with them. They're very, very loud speakers, very loud speakers. So this is one that you might go for if you are doing a bit of tracking with a client. And I do think it's important to think about because you've got to remember with near fields, especially this, it depends on the size of your desk, the sweet spot, i.e. the equilateral triangle, is going to be pretty important. So if you've got if you're in the sweet spot and your client's sitting kind of behind you to your left, they might not be hearing what you're hearing. They might be hearing too much of the left speaker. You know what I mean? It's very dependent on where you're sitting. So that's optional, but I've got that in because I can fit it in the budget. Now, the next one are the Kali IN5s, which are coaxial 3-ways. So they're technically 3-ways, but they're not 3-ways in the way that you would normally think of a 3-way. In a normal 3-way speaker, like Ed's PSIs, you've got a woofer, you've got a mid-driver, and then you've got a tweeter. So you've essentially got kind of 3 different sets of speakers. Now, with the Kali IN5s, the mid-driver sits around the tweeter. So it's like your tweeter sits in here. I know, what? Oh, Jesus Christ. We'll keep that we'll keep that in the edit. God's sake.
Hopefully there's no pop-ups from Riverside about that one.
Oh, no, God. I'm so glad for the people that are listening to this, probably, on the podcast who didn't get to see that. But we'll probably see if we can put a fucking screenshot or something. But can we get cancelled?
Of what?
We'll do both as a comparison.
A coaxial tweeter, I think you mean.
Yes, we'll do it with a coaxial tweeter, yes. I do think it's good to have a pair of 3-ways if you can afford it. Especially in a £5,000 budget, I would say it's a good shout. And the Kalis are a good shout. I do prefer them to budget 2-ways. So I do prefer their sound to the PreSonus Eris Studio 8s and the Kali LPs. So I've got the Kali LP 8s and 6 in the Atmos room. Now, obviously, the 6s are up the ceiling, so I can't really compare them that much, but they're the same range. The LP8s are good, but what I feel I get from the Kali IN5s are more kind of mid-range separation. I do feel I get a little bit better mid-range detail, and I just kind of feel like records sound more like records when I listen on these. And lastly, I have got the best speakers I've ever tried in this studio, which are the Edifier S3000 Mark II.
How much are they?
£700. A big in China, as I've said before, is taking over the market.
Oh yeah, for some reason I had it in my mind that they were like $3,000, but they're not. They're ridiculously cheap, aren't they?
Yeah. So with these are 6.5 low to mid range drivers.
Don't gesticulate that one.
What? What am I doing now? Fucking hell! It's because I'm looking at the speakers. My hands are doing whatever they're wanting to do. Jesus Christ! Right.
I don't think Paul got that. Never mind. Moving swiftly on.
Right. So they're 6.5 inch. Oh God! Now I know what you meant. Now, fuck's sake. Oh,
so
God.
Childish. Forgive me. I've been ill all weekend.
I'll forgive you.
I've been out of the house for 3 days.
I'll forgive you. Right. So we've got 6.5 inch low mid drivers, and we've got planar magnetic tweeters, which is something that is very, very rare in regards to what I don't know of many speakers that have planar magnetic tweeters, but these sound so detailed, and it makes sense as because I mix on planar magnet headphones, and the tweeters sound incredible. And the aluminium drivers for the low to mid, oh my God, they don't need a sub. Like they're 6.5 inch and they don't need a sub. It's incredible. And it's amazing because when I went from the PreSonus to the LP8, then I went to the IN5s, I was like, yeah, there's definite improvement. I could mix on these quite comfortably. But when I moved now to the Edifiers, I'm like hearing all the stuff that I didn't think speakers could do in this room. So there's this beautiful separation where the vocal sits right in the middle. I mean, like the vocal like comes right at you, and everything else has got a space around it. The side image, you could hear the side image a lot clearer, and like the sub information kind of almost goes behind the speakers. Now these are rear ported, so I don't know if that's got, the Kalis are front ported as well as the PreSonus. I don't know really the difference audibly between front ported and rear ported, but the Edifiers are rear ported. And it's just crazy how amazingly detailed these sound. The transients are incredible. Like when I go back and forth between the IN5s and the Edifiers, like you just get this automatic sense of one, like low end. It's like so wide, so big, so expansive, but so it doesn't crap out on itself. It's nice and detailed. No, but you can get low end in some speakers, but it just kind of craps out in the low end and it just sounds a bit murky. It's nice and detailed. The mid range is super. Like even when I was listening to Back in Black, and again the transients are better than the Kalis, and when the solo kicks in, it's like in the middle, and it's just like wow, the solo just pops out this mix. I feel like I can hear compression more. I feel like I can hear automation more. And I'm just like amazed. I'm blown away by the detail of the tweeters, the sub, everything. And I mean, like, nobody will be able to see this if you're listening to it, but it's even got a remote. And I love remotes. Honestly, the top end's got a remote. I fucking love remotes. Now, what's great is these.
How many remotes have you got in your studio?
Fucking loads. I've got that. I've got the top end. I've got this remote for the fan heater that's over there. Yeah, I do love a remote. It's easier to work with. The Edifiers have built-in digital DSP that you could switch to with the buttons. So there's a flat mode, the vocal mode, there's a dynamic mode, which I really liked, and that's the one that also measured the best in this room as well. It's got Bluetooth, so you can connect it via Bluetooth. You can go XLR balanced, you can go RCA unbalanced. It's just unbelievable. Like the options that I've got with these three speakers is incredible. So I've got tracking speakers, I've got a pair of three-ways, and I just got these unbelievably sounding Edifiers that make me want to listen to music. Like I just sit back and I go, I love music listening to these speakers. I don't know if that's something that you've found, Ed, in like your speaker journey, where you've listened to some speakers like the Kalis. The Kalis are inoffensive, very neutral, right? Again, like soft dome tweeters, kind of like paper cones. They're very neutral sounding, and like from 20 hertz all the way up to 20 kilohertz, they all have this unified sound. They're very inoffensive, very neutral, but it doesn't excite me. It doesn't make me want to sit and listen and mix and like get into the mix in these speakers. I don't know if that's something that you found when you were like in your journey and you were with the Neumanns, and then you started moving to the PMCs and you tried out the Barefoots, which you didn't like anyway, but the Ex Machinas and the PMCs and the mums and stuff like that. Was that something that you heard going from, say, like maybe a £500 pair of speakers to like your $2-3 speakers?
Yeah, I mean, everything you've said is exactly what you hear when you move up the price point, and the benefits just keep coming at you. The main interesting thing that I noticed moving from the Neumanns to any other speaker, basically, three-way speakers at least, was songs that I thought sounded good on the Neumanns. And there's a great example of this. There's a track by a band called Lady A called What If I Never Move On, or can't remember. Great, beautiful song. And on the Neumanns, I loved how it sounded. Put the song onto three-way speakers and I was like, oh, it's actually not as good a sounding a track as I thought. But what I think makes the speaker journey interesting is just what speakers lean towards different types of music. And the speaker that just seemed to be immune from any genre influence and room influence was the Ex Machinas. Never heard anything like them. But there are reasons I didn't go for those over the PSIs, as discussed on my channel. So you've got 3 sets of speakers. What's that coming in at? How much of your budget is that rinsing?
No, I'm not done yet because there actually still is room in the budget, right? So because
no, that's what I meant. Yeah. What's the interface? I know you've got room treatment in there, and you've probably got something up your sleeve.
Right. So this is going to surprise you, right? Now, because I've got it in the budget. Now, with the Kali IN5s being pretty deficient in the low end for me, they're 5-inch speaker woofers, but I don't know. Like, even though it states in the manual that it got a spec sheet that it goes down to like, I don't know, like 45, 50 hertz, it doesn't really, like, it needs a sub. Like, definitely needs a sub. Like, I'm trying to correct with it in SonarWorks and it's just artificial and it doesn't sound. But then, what do you expect? They're fucking 5-inch fucking woofers, you know what I mean? So
yeah, a speaker can only do so much, and also if you drive them, often measurements given by manufacturers in their literature is they'll go down to 45 hertz at minus 6 decibels.
Yeah.
So to push that to get it at 0 at 45 hertz, the speakers have got to have enough headroom. That's at least 6 decibels. That's subject to any other room correction that it may need. So the speaker, certainly the more budget-friendly ones, they don't have loads of headroom, and that's the other problem with certainly the 2-ways and the cheaper speakers, whereas the better, more expensive speakers, you can get 20 dB of headroom out of them. I mean, it's not advisable, but, the potential's there.
Yeah. So due to knowing that, again, I've got them in my room, that they definitely need a sub, I was like, you know what? I'm going to put a sub in the room. Now, I've got the Kali WS 6.2, which is a dual sub. It's not a stereo sub, it's a dual sub. 2 different things, but they are very powerful and they sound amazing. Like in my Atmos room, I'm like blown away with how amazing they sound. And they come in at £520 if you get them on like a good deal. And I think I was something I checked on Google. So I would definitely advise those with the IN5s. Like if you get the mid-range detail with the coaxial 3-way, and then combine that with the WS 6.2. You have got a really, really good sounding setup because you're getting.
So you got 3 stereo pairs of speakers, 1 subwoofer. What's that taking out of your budget?
Okay, so Edifier's 700, PreSonus is 400, that's 1100. Kali IN5s are 600, that's 1700, and then the WS 6.2 is £520. So what's that?
£2,200.
About £2,200. So that,
all right, so that's not even half of your budget, and
Yep.
you've gone for 3 sets of speakers.
And
okay.
a sub.
What's next then?
Right, so obviously you got to think about your converter. Now, obviously it's going to be the DX7 Pro Plus because that's what I've got in my studio. If I was going to go for a converter, that's what it would be. Now, the good thing about the DX7 Pro Plus is that it has balanced and it has unbalanced. So in my studio, I've got the Edifiers going out RCA unbalanced, and I've got the IN5s going balanced. The specific reason I chose that was because the edifiers are so powerful. Like, I can't remember, it was like over 200 odd watts or something per speaker. Or yeah, so I've got them two running through there. And because I use the PreSonus Era Studio 8s for tracking, I'm not really fussed about the conversion. So I'm putting that through my interface, which is the Audient Evo 16, which is £400. And I've managed to be a cheeky monkey because I've still got it in the budget. I've also added in the Evo SP8 to give me an additional 8 I/O just because I can. So the way I've got it working in my studio is the Evo 16. It's got two sets of ADAT. So I use the other set of ADAT, which is optical SPDIF. So that gets sent to the topping. So that means that I could use the topping USB, but when I'm in the DAW, I can use the topping for my monitors, use the remote in the DAW, and I use the Listen Bus in Studio One.
Talk about overcomplicating it.
It's not even complicated, it's just awesome. This, honestly, the remotes, I fucking love remotes. I love remotes.
All right, so you've gone for two different audio interfaces, a headphone amplifier that also powers speakers.
Yep.
Well, feed speakers. 3 sets of speakers and a subwoofer.
Yep.
And just very quickly off the top of my head, that was coming in at about
2.2, I
30,
think.
40, well, no, including all of it. Yeah.
All right.
You've got a few £100 left.
I don't actually, right? I've actually got more than you think, right? So we had 2.2, and the topping DX7 Pro Plus brought that to 2.9 because it's 700. Evo 16 plus SP8 is 800, so it's that 3.7. So I've still got £1,300 left. So with my remaining £1,300, I've spent £1,000 on acoustic treatment, because if you've got 3 speakers in a room, and again, as we said last week, spend as much as you can. I think £1,000 is enough to get you a phenomenally well treated room. Maybe some would say it's maybe a bit overkill. I don't think it is. If you're going with GIK, you will get enough for you. There's
I'll tell you
bundles
what,
and
keep
stuff.
an eye on eBay and
Very
Reverb
true.
for GIK stuff, because they
I've
get a
done
lot
that.
of stuff sent back to them
Yep.
that they then have to sell as B stock for nearly half the price. I've just bought these behind me for cheaper, so that's a good way of getting discounted GIK stuff. Don't tell GIK I said that, but I will say that because when my channel was really small, I was looking to move into a studio that wasn't this one, and I asked them about a collaboration, and they said, yeah, we only look at channels above 20,000 subscribers, so now I'm above 20,000 subscribers. I'm not going to sell you products, so there we go.
Yeah. So yeah, true, because I did the same. See, for the bass traps that are in that corner there, I did the same. eBay got 2 of them, like half price. So yeah, so you can definitely get, like, for £1,000, you can definitely probably fully treat your room and do it right, honestly. Right, so I've got about £300 left. So I've decided to kind of split it down the middle. And for the Kali IN5s, I would go for the ISO acoustic stands, not the pucks, because the pucks are good, but they're a bit of a pain in the arse. Like, say if you need to move them, they're stuck, and like, say when you're trying to get them on and stuff, and it's quite fiddly. But I just think that the stands, from what I've read, the stands give you better isolation than the pucks. That's what I've read anyway.
I have some inside information on that.
All right, okay. Is it true?
It was true as far as I tested them in my studio.
Right,
the
okay.
pucks versus the stands, but I do have a theory. Because the stands raise the speakers about 4 inches higher than the pucks, I think that was minimising the desk reflection issue.
Ooh,
So I think
yeah,
that's why
point.
they sound better.
That's a good point. Right.
And I also thought with mine, I've got the 6-legged stands and just 6 contact points versus 4 made a better decision in my mind, but I could be wrong.
No, yeah, so that's so whatever you go for, I would definitely advise getting some isolation in there. And the last one is I'm not going to go for SonarWorks because I ran out of money. So what I've done is I went for Arc 4 without the box, which is
the software.
Yeah, plus the mic, which is 150 quid. So I would go with Arc 4 plus the mic. And I'm pretty sure, Ed, correct me if I'm wrong, but with the software, it works in the same way as SonarWorks, where you can have multiple different calibrations. So I would be able to calibrate these 3 and I'd be able to switch.
Swap between them like you would on Sound ID.
Yeah. So there you have it. We have 3 sets of speakers, subwoofer, we've got an interface with an additional 8-channel I/O. So I've got 16 I/O, and I have got arguably one of the best measuring converters on the market in the Topping DX7 Pro Plus. I have got £1,000 worth of acoustic treatment. I've got ISO speaker stands, and I've got calibration coming from Arc 4, which is getting highly talked about. Now, Ed, I'd like to talk very quickly about Arc, because there's been talk about this delay issue. There's like a millisecond, I don't know if you're in linear phase mode or natural mode. Did you notice any delay with Arc?
I've heard this issue is only in this desktop software. It's not in the box.
Okay. So if you've got the box, then you're not going to experience that issue.
Don't quote me on that, but the people I've heard having that problem have been using the desktop version, not the box. And I've got the box going, and I don't have that problem.
Okay. Right, so there you have it. There you go, Ed. What do you think about that? That's pretty good. That's pretty good for $5,000, eh? Like, I've got a lot of stuff for $5,000.
I think you're a greedy bastard, quite frankly, wanting all that stuff. But there's for me, there's a bit of a fundamental flaw in your process in that I feel like, I mean, I've not heard these edifiers, right?
Yeah,
if they're as good as, okay, if you say they're as good as the Topping, then I trust you, because the Topping is mind-blowingly good. For anyone listening, Topping DX7 Pro Plus, we're not joking when we say that literally competes with a $4,000 Hilo. So if you say it's that good, I trust you. I do like the fact that you've got a second alternative set of speakers.
Yep.
Certainly on my own journey, I've learned the value of that. So that's a good shout. Room treatment, yep, great. Arc, yep, cool. I can't attest to how good the Arc desktop version is compared to Sound ID. I would assume it's the same as the Arc Studio box, but assumption is the mother of all.
I would assume it's better because the thing that I don't like about the box is that you're having to run through their conversion, and I would much rather run through my Topping conversion than their conversion. That's why I would rather use the software. That's what I'm thinking.
Valid point. But actually, the Arc conversion has a dynamic range of 120 decibels.
Yeah, I've been told it's pretty decent. Yeah,
which is the same as Focusrite's Redneck converters, and is actually 5 decibels better than Trinnov Nova, which blew my mind. However, long story short, I contacted them via my distributor about that, and they got back with a message that didn't really convince me or make any sense. Anyway.
Okay. So that's mine, Ed. So that's mine. What is yours, Mr. Thorne? Because I know this isn't you. I just know, ladies and gentlemen, thems and days, that we are not going to have a ton of stuff as much as I did, because I know Ed well, and I know Ed doesn't fucking pay cheap. So I expect this is going to be pretty good. I expect you have went for some of the best that you can get in that price range.
If you don't have an in-house mastering engineer like we're fortunate enough to have with Marcel at Actu Make with the working audio tools, DistroKid have you covered. For just $99 a year, you can buy unlimited mastering for all of your tracks in tandem with unlimited releases via DistroKid. Mixair from DistroKid uses AI technology to measure the EQ and the dynamics of your track and then present you with numerous options to tweak and customize your master. You can flip between the original and the generic mastered option.
Blame it on the whiskey. Blame it on the bad weed.
So instantly we can hear that's making the track louder, and it's also slightly flattening the EQ, bringing in a little bit more of the mid-range and of course the top end. We can adjust the intensity, which is how much compression and limiting is being applied to the track.
Blame it on the only thing you've ever seen. Run and tell your mother. Blame it on your brother.
I think somewhere in the middle works for this track. And the EQ options are self-explanatory. We can make the track effectively duller or brighter.
Just ain't right. All you do is lie. All you do is try to deny. All you do is lie. Even when you know it just ain't right. All you do is lie.
Download your mastered track and release it as easily as you do all of your other unlimited uploads. Get 30% off your DistroKid subscription using the Working Audio Tools VIP link below. All right, so just for the listeners, if you are getting bored of speakers, my section is going to be quite short. Stay tuned because we are going to be talking about $5,000 worth of headphone combinations for mixing. So, yeah, I actually struggled with this quite a bit. I was going around in circles as I do. And the first time I experienced this dilemma was when I bought my first ever PA system. God, it must have been 17 years ago. And I had a budget of $2,000. Well, the band had a budget. Long story short, they never paid me back. I kept it, took it away with me, and that's how I ended up doing live sound. For $2,000, I thought, well, I could get this, and I spent weeks going around in circles. I could get this combination. But for an extra £200, I can get this. For an extra £500, once I've got that, I might as well get this. And before you know it, you've spent $5,000 and your budget's $2,000. So with this, it was very much the same. I was like, ooh, my budget's $5,000, but if I could just get to 7. Well, if I'm at 7, and that's why I ended up buying the PSI speakers as well. My initial budget for that search was $6,500, and then it went to 10, and then it went to 12, and then it went included Trinnov
and the subs.
Yeah. Yes, kids, don't do what I did.
No.
So my priority was speaker and room calibration software of some kind. Now Trinnov is out the window. Trinnov Nova is £3,800, I think. I wasn't going to spend most of my budget on that. However, lower down in the budget range is the Neumann MA1 system with the KH750 subwoofer, which with the MA1 microphone is about £1,500. So then I thought, well, what could I get with those? Technically, you can put any speaker with the Neumann KH750 sub and the MA1 system. Some guy moaned at me about, the crossover point's not calibrated to other speakers. Well, doesn't matter because the MA1 system does that for you. So that's basically irrelevant. Anyway, it's going to be about 8. I can't remember what the exact number is, but it's going to be about 80 hertz anyway. All these systems are. So then I thought, well, okay, the Neumann KH120 Mark IIs are a noticeable step up on the analog Mark I's that I had. So this is one option, and we'll discuss why in a minute, which comes in basically around £3,000. So that gives us $2,000 left. And then I wanted something to feed both. And I considered the topping. It is great. But for the same money, roughly, I wanted to get an Apollo Twin X. It's a little bit more, maybe £1,000. Because it's got the alt speaker output button, which is really useful for quick swapping between speakers, and you can trim both of them to get them the same level. So I've opted in this package for the Twin X with a set of Tantrum Audio Angry boxes.
Ooh.
Which if nobody's seen these, they're kind of, couldn't quite figure out the point of them in the marketplace because they're budget friendly. They're £600 a pair. They are like the Auratones. They're just one mid driver in the middle. The frequency range is literally 100 to 10K. Not really anything either. I mean, nothing below, some stuff above, but basically to 10K. And they're really good quality, detailed speakers in that frequency range. So I thought they'd make a really good set of alternative speakers. So I didn't quite max out this budget because I got distracted, but currently we're at about £4,500 for that. So there's some room for acoustic treatment in the room. But the setup that did excite me, Paul, now you're right. I really wanted to get a set of 3-way speakers because I see the benefits of those over 2 ways. And the Head Type 20s came to mind at 4K, but I've not heard those in my studio, so I can't give you a definitive referral to those yet, but I'm actually hoping to get hold of some to do a video on. So if that were to be the combination, Head Type 20s, they're 4K, plus Arc Studio, plus the DX7, £700, that's £5,000, bang on the nose for the budget. But the one that did excite me was, and I do have these now, the Amphion 115s with the 700 amp, which is £3,700 on SX Pro at the moment. The DX7 Pro Plus, £700, so that's £4,400. With Arc Studio and £300 worth of room treatment. Now, it's limiting in terms of the Amphions are technically 2 ways, but what I'm finding is they're so wonderful and easy to mix on. And they just deliver such a good average. Once I've mixed on those, it just seems to translate better everywhere else. If I do stuff on the PSIs with the sub and I go to the Amphions, I make it a couple of tweaks, put them back on the PSIs, and then it sounds better, which is mad.
So have you changed your mind a little bit on 3-ways and 2-ways, having the Amphions now?
Absolutely not. I think they both have a purpose. I think
Okay.
the quality of the Amphions really sells 2-ways for me, which is why I was excited about this little bundle. But the 3-ways, you obviously get the low end extension and the top end extension and the detail and the depth of sound. But then the Amphions kind of have the detail and
Yeah.
maybe not as much as depth as the PSIs, but then I've not heard a speaker that has the depth of the PSIs. That's why I got them. So in tandem, they're a really good setup. But yeah, I think you need some kind of room acoustic treatment. You need some kind of room calibration. The Amphion 115s are genuinely very good, and they do crop up on Reverb and Make Noise Pro audio every now and then. Now, I probably shouldn't mention Reverb and Make Noise Pro in the same sentence.
Yeah, true.
Sam won't be
Very
happy with
true.
that. Hi,
I
Sam,
know.
if you're listening. But if you are interested in secondhand gear, definitely keep an eye on Make Noise Pro audio. Sam's just brilliant. Fantastic business. So there is potentially to get an even more advanced system going secondhand with this stuff. For example, I've seen a set of Ex Machinas going for $5,000. What we haven't factored in is cabling and all that stuff, but that's just boring. And obviously, we've not factored in a computer because that's taken as a given.
Yep.
See, I just couldn't decide because I wanted 3-ways, but I like the Amphion bundle.
Yeah.
But I also, what I would say is, if you can, it's worth getting a consumer device at some point in there as well. I've got the Anker Soundcore Bluetooth speaker, which sounds dreadful, and it craps out and it limits and it's just awful. But if you get a mix past that, you're winning pretty much on everything. Yeah, speakers basically, despite the guy who talks about speakers all the time, I actually didn't really have a solid conclusion. But if I were to have my time again and I had $5,000, knowing now that Spike mixes on the Neumanns, he only mixes on the analogs. He doesn't touch the Mark II digital ones, apparently. I'd have to say I'd probably go for the Neumann setup.
Which is going to lead us to the next crossover, which is $5,000 headphone budget. Now, this is going to be way, way more controversial because many people out there will be like, yeah, $5,000 speaker setup, yeah, makes sense, makes a lot of sense. $5,000 for a headphone setup? Are you fucking mental? $5,000? Beyerdynamics cost fucking £150, God's sake. Like, no, like, if you're going to do it right.
And what do you think about Beyerdynamics, Paul?
I think they sound shit, and I'm going to do a video about them because genuinely, I've got this thing, right? And again, Ed agrees with me, and so many other people agree with me. It seems to be that there's almost like a Beyerdynamic curse, where it's like many Beyerdynamic users will tell you to their fucking, they're like dead in the face that like their Beyerdynamics sound better than any other headphone on the market. You could sit there and go, mate, your mix isn't translating, but it sounds amazing on the Beyerdynamics. I've been there. I had a pair of DT770 Pros, and I remember being in college, and I remember going, look at this mix, sounds great. Sent it around the college. We all had headphones. They were like, nah, that sounds a bit odd. That sounds a bit off.
Well, hang on, we might be doing Beyerdynamic a disservice there because the 770s are closed backs intended for recording, not mixing. I'm sure the 1990s open backs are a different story. I would have assumed.
No, because I had a mentoring client, which, by the way, is a thing that I do now. I don't advertise it, but I've got 2 mentoring clients.
Advertise it now, Paul. Go
I know,
on.
yes.
Shameless plug.
Whoop, whoop, whoop. Come in. Like I don't genuinely think I'm the right man to teach you how to become a professional mixing engineer. But if you're starting out in your journey and you want to know like all the stuff that I've picked up over the years, then and you're local or whatever, you want to do teams, then yeah, get in touch. And agree a price. There's Ed as well. Again,
Fuck me, you've got to work on your sales pitch before you open your studio. Get listening to the Six Figure Home Studio podcast.
Yeah.
I've told you this before, and I know you ignored me, and you're going to ignore me for the next year while I tell you. And then what will happen in typical Ed and Paul style, because we do this to each other on a monthly basis, if not weekly basis, is like, Ed, You really need to do this. Nah, I can't be
It's the
bothered.
worst Scottish
Ed, you
accent
really need
ever.
to check this out. Not interested. Ed, you really, yeah, okay, I'll try it. And then, yeah, he's right. And I'll,
Yeah.
Paul does the same. Six Figure Home Studio podcast. I can't believe I'm plugging someone else's podcast on our podcast, but it genius. Chris Graham, who we've had on,
Yeah.
check out that episode. Unfortunately, I think that's one of our underperforming interviews, but the guy is just genius. Everything he says is absolute gold. So if you're running a home studio business or any studio business, Six Figure Home Studio podcast.
Just to kind of hark back before I tell you all about my $5,000 headphone setup. I had this mentoring client, and he came in and he was like, right, I just want to see what you think of my mixing. So I was like, stuck it on the edifiers. I was like, right, does your mix sound like how it should? He was like, no. Put it on the Ananda Nanos. Does your mix sound like it should? No. I was like, he's like, what do you hear? I went, I hear the low end absolutely swamping the mix. The low end is way too much. Stuck it on his HD, no, not HD, the DT 990 Pro. I don't know if they were Pro or Pro X. I can't remember. And his mix sounded great. It sounded great. I was like, this mix sounds great. And then it reminded me of my college days when I was passing it around, and I was like, but listen to it on my Bears. And they're like, yeah, it sounds great. But it sounds shit on everything else. And that's kind of what happened. I was like, right, you can't hear the low end. I was like, why did you not EQ them? And he was like, I didn't like them EQ'd. Why? Because Bears and lower cost dynamics don't really take EQ well, mostly in the low end because of the way that dynamic headphones work. Like, you've got to pay a little bit more to get dynamic headphones that aren't going to kind of crap out in the low end and overlay the stop.
Again, it's the same as speakers. They've got to have the headroom to be able to be EQ'd, to be able to give them the 6 dB they might need, plus whatever transients you're delivering through the mix.
Yeah, so it's not going to be a surprise that I'm not going to recommend any Bear dynamic headphones. And I'll get lynched in the comments, but I don't give a shit. Fuck it, I've pissed off enough people in the audio industry. Right, so headphones wise, first off, it is they're there. They're there. Those ones there. The Hyphaman and Ananda Nanos, right? You can't see what I'm pointing to. I always forget. But yes, the Ananda Nanos, which Ed is going to get very, very soon. My contact at Hyphaman came through, and Ed is away to get them very, very, very soon.
Yep, legend. Thanks, Mark.
Yep. He's from Stirling, by the way. Who would believe that? Hyphaman rep in Stirling. Fucking mental. It's like 40 minutes up the road from me. So
are you saying Sterling?
Stirling, yes. Stirling.
Sterling, right. Spelt with an I, not an E like this currency.
For anybody that's not watching the podcast, I am giving Ed both fucking fingers, right? So I went for the Ananda Nanos. They're £600 because they are genuinely the best I've heard in headphone land for low-end detail and transients. The mid-channel detail is frightening. You will hear like everything. If you're listening to vocals and you want to hear it, like if there's lip smacking or you need to DS something, you'll hear it on there. The low-end detail is remarkable. That's one of the main reasons why when we did the Can't Stop mix for present day production, Ed was like, "What? How is your car passing? How is your mix passing the car test, but mine's isn't?" And I was like, "Because of those." And then when I went to London, and again we compared them with Ed's setup, and we compared them with the Sennheiser headphones and stuff. Immediately he was like, "Wow, these slam, and these are so detailed, and the low end is amazing." To the point now he's away to get them. So I mix with those now first. I do all my main kind of mixing with those first. So that's £600. Now, this is going to surprise people because it's not something I own. Obviously, I've got the HE1000 SEs that I love. I adore them. The resolution and the sound stage in those. You'll struggle to find any other headphone that sounds like those. But when I heard the Dan Clark Stealths at MSM's, I was like, I have never heard headphones sounding like a pair of speakers in my life. Now, they're obviously $5,000, but M had said to me and Ed that they had the E3s, and the E3s were basically the same as the Stealth, but they were a more affordable option, and I think there was just a difference of an EQ. I think they were tonally a little bit different. But he was like, actually, most people will probably prefer the E3s to the Stealth. So basing it on what I heard at M's, like I just kept on wanting to listen to the Dan Clarks. They are phenomenal, and if the A3s are as good as, I mean, Ed, did you hear the E3s? Because he got them, didn't he? Did you hear them when you were in the studio?
he had a producer friend of his round who had them, and that was when M tried them
Right.
for the first time. So yeah, I did try them. They're good. Out of the box, the Stealths have got it,
Right. Okay.
but they're an extra $2,000, I think. I couldn't tell you if it's just a matter of a bit of an EQ curve on them or not. If that's all M says it is, then I trust his ears, because
Yeah.
that guy is meticulous.
Yeah. And when I heard them, it was the same as when M heard the HGs. I could tell he was like, I like them, but it's like, I don't know if I could mix on them because I've never heard such resolution and such space and depth. He's like, I've never heard my mixes so wide and so tall.
What I'd say about the Nanos and the HE1000s, though, is they're literally the opposite headphones.
100%.
So
yeah.
something like the headphones I've gone for, I think are a very good neutral overall average of everything you want in a headphone, much like the Sennheiser HD490s are, I think. The Nanos are really mid-focused, and they're incredible for low end, as Paul said. And again, not to blow smoke up their arse, but they really are as good as Paul's just said. And the HE1000s kind of lack all that middle content, but they have all the side stuff. So in terms of balancing key things like drums and bass and vocals, those aren't the tool for the job.
Yep.
The Nanos are out of the two. But then if you want to then swap them over and then gauge all the side information and the
Which is
stereo
what I
imaging,
do, yeah.
then the HE1000 are the job. So the two of them are literally give you the tools, the best tools for both areas of headphones.
Yeah. So people will be surprised, but I think it was just because I'm always thinking about speaker translation, and I'm just thinking that the Dan's Clark's E3s would probably lean better to speaker translation, probably. So it was a tough one because I fucking adore those. And again, as Ed said, in the combination, they really work. So that was my choice. So that's 2,600 already. Now, the last pair is the pair I mentioned last week, which I'm wearing right now, which is the Olo S5X, £450. And I would combine that with real phones, but I'd get the full package. It's $5,000, get the full fucking package. Like, you may as well. So obviously I would have all the detail, like the low end detail, and again the mid channel detail, drums, bass, your vocals, your meat and two of edge through the Nanda Nanos. I would have like your image, sim stage, kind of with the Dan Clarks, and I would have full translation with the Olo S5X and real phones, because I do genuinely believe that the Olos have never sounded better. And sorry, I'll say that again. And the reason I mentioned the Olos is because real phones has never sounded as realistic through any other headphone, in my personal opinion. So that leaves two things. It leaves an interface and it leaves a headphone amp DAC. Now, because I am...
Question is, though, do you need both? Because if you're just mixing, you don't need an interface.
Very, very true. But I was like, I'm going to go for two, just because I do think that sometimes...
Be greedy.
No, because if you want to use analog gear, then you can't with a DAC amp. So again, if I've got 500
That's a
series
good
stuff
point.
there. So that's what I was thinking. So I went for now. I
You've just opened up a can of worms there, Paul.
How?
Oh, thinking about what you need for mixing with headphones. Yeah, but hang on. Analog processing is a whole different $5,000 episode.
Oh, you know
Let's
better
do
than
that.
anybody. So yeah,
Need more than that.
So the DAC amp would have been the DX7 Pro Plus. However, if I'm going all out, right, and I'm like, right, this is $5,000, and I'm not going proper audio science, I'd go for the DX9, purely just for the reason that it's the flagship and it's the step up. I know for a fact, right, that you're probably not going to hear absolutely any difference whatsoever between the two, but it's got a really nice GUI to it. You can get a VU meter and shit like that, but the specs are better. And I know the Paul Third realistic guy in me is saying DX7 Pro Plus, you love it. It's probably one of the best measuring converters. It's not, the DX9 hasn't been done on Audio Science Review yet, but topping specs do have marginally better specs. And you get you get more inputs and stuff like that. So it's probably absolutely needless to think that it's £1,300. So I've kind of blasted my budget. But it's the one thing where I'm like, no, what? I'm going to splurge for a change. I'm going to do an Ed Thorne, and I'm going to splurge, and I'm going to get the best of the best, even though you're probably not going to tell the difference. If I was spending that money, I'd want the best of the best. I'd want the fancy GUI, not the GUI, but it is a GUI. But I'd want the fancy interface bit at the front. I'd want the extra inputs. I'd want
Has that got a screen on the top?
Yeah, it's cool as shit. It's so cool. At the top of it, you can actually see the circuitry and stuff like that. That's the geeky stuff I like, man. I love to be able to see that. Oh, you would love it
that was pretty cool.
because Ed loves to see the inside of things, don't you? No, I better phrase that. Jesus Christ, this is turning into a terrible podcast. When it comes to audio equipment, Ed likes to see the inside of stuff. He does it with mics and stuff, where he fucking unscrews them all.
It's a horrible way to refer to your mum.
Right, that's enough. No mums on this podcast, bar the speakers, right? But they're the only mums that are allowed on this fucking podcast. Right. And so I've spent a lot of money on that. And then the interface would be the Evo 16, because obviously I could just go optical SPDIF and connect that to the DX9. So I'd be able to mix and have inputs as well. So I could, again, do things like this podcast. But I'd be able to have 8 in and out for analog gear if I so wished. So that is basically full $5,000, 3 sets of headphones, the best, probably the best converter that probably there ever needs to be. It's stupid specs, numbers. Do you get into somebody made a good comment I seen where they said that getting the DX9 are for the people that want to hear the grass grow. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. That's quite a good fucking comment. I was like, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. So yeah, that's good.
That's the kind of one-liner Em had come out with.
I know, I was quite good. So yeah, that's my headphone setup. I'd be quite interested, Ed, to hear. I mean, are you hearing the grass grow with your setup, or have you went a little bit more conservative and got more bang for your buck than I have, just going fucking all out just for the sake of it?
So mine is a simple but effective setup, much like a northerner. I actually envisaged, because I've been considering something this week, Paul. My time with the band I'm playing with at the moment has had to come to an end for various reasons we won't go into. But basically, it's left me with quite a big load of holes in the diary over the summer, which I can fill in with other stuff. But it made me think, hang on, what am I doing in London? I'd quite like to go to Italy, and I've got a real hankering to go back to Thailand. And I thought, hang on a minute, I could sell the van, buy a few things, including this exact setup, and go and sit on a beach and mix on the beach in Thailand on headphones. The only thing keeping me back is that I don't want to mix purely on headphones. I want to mix on speakers. So with a little bit of that in mind, this won't happen. These was just me fantasizing for a couple of days while I was ill and delusional on my sofa. But the budget that I came up with was, for me, the best all-round headphones I've heard, and this takes into account the center image, the stereo imaging, frequency response, transient response detail, are the Audeze LCD MX4s. I'd go with the topping DX7 Pro Plus, because if I'm on a beach, I'm not going to be doing the podcast. No, I would take away something to do that, of course. But the point of this was just to focus on mixing, so I was not thinking of any inputs. And I considered a second set of headphones, and I did look at the HE1000s for the spatial imaging that they give you. But then I settled on the Apple AirPod Maxes.
Oh, that's a good shout, actually.
Because that's what everyone's listening on.
Well, the Pro, why did you not go, instead of the Maxes, which are the headphones, why didn't you go for the pods?
That's next on my list.
Oh, right. He's going 2. Right. Okay. Right.
Yeah. Now, with the Apple AirPod Pros, which are the top of the range in-ear ones, they're Bluetooth. So although the topping has a Bluetooth input for playing music from a device, it doesn't have a Bluetooth output. If they can update that, that would be amazing. But there is a way around that with an app called Mix to Mobile. I believe it's £40. And it's a plugin that goes in your DAW, and then you have an app on your phone, and from your DAW via your room's Wi-Fi or whatever your Wi-Fi your computer is connected to and your phone are connected to, you can stream audio to your phone and therefore to your Bluetooth headphones. Alternatively, you can do what I do, which is plug your phone in via USB and plug it directly into your computer. The app talks to the DAW. It's literally seamless. I've never had a problem with it. There's a slight delay in terms of play, but you get a stop and a play button on the app. So you mute your in-house system and then just play off the app. And it works really well. So that's how you can test on Bluetooth speakers and Bluetooth headphones. Speaking of Bluetooth speakers and thinking of being on a beach in Thailand with a pina colada, I would take an Anker Soundcore Bluetooth speaker, or even, you could even get an Alexa. I mean, I even considered getting an Alexa in the studio because they just sound terrible. But the reason they sound terrible is they're usually in the corner of a kitchen against the wall. So all you're getting is the low end, which isn't particularly defined. But again, as with any consumer device, if it translates, you're doing quite well. So this is kind of going for an all translation mixing process. Audacity LCD MX4s, £2,900. Topping DX7 Pro Plus, £700. Apple AirPod Maxes, I think, are £500. AirPod Pros are £250. Anker soundbar is £50. So there's actually a bit of budget left, which, might be my flights to Thailand.
Yeah, know what you've made? No, I can't believe I forgot about the Apple AirPods, because that's something that I was like, said to Laura, I'm going to have to buy them. She was like, why'd you have to buy them? I was like, because I don't have a contact at Apple. I don't know anybody.
Yeah, there's one company I can almost guarantee aren't going to give us anything, and that's Apple.
Yeah, I know, because I think the only guy I know on YouTube that gets stuff is what's his name? Is it Marcus Brownlee or something like that?
Yeah.
He's like one of the biggest fucking YouTubers on the platform and the tech side of it. So yeah, I'd have to buy them, but it's annoying because they're not cheap. However, in terms of translation, that is what all the teenagers that I like see in the college and stuff, like obviously I work in the college, and all the apprentices are like, you're talking 18 to fucking early 20s, most of them, and they're all wearing Apple AirPods. So when they're listening to music, that's what they're listening on. So I really should buy a pair, but I'm so tight and so stubborn. I'm like, I don't want them. But to be fair, I'd probably end up using them when I was actually out on walks and stuff like that. So very, very good point, Ed. Now, next week, we are going to top this off by basically doing what I used to do when I was younger in school. Ed won't really get this because I know he wasn't into football. But anybody that was into football when they were younger would be, you'd go around the class when you were bored, and it'd be like, right, pick your favourite football team, right? And you get one turn each. So it'd be like your left back, bastard, I would have got that left back, bastard, you took my centre half. God, you took Henri, I wanted Henri. So what we're going to do next week is we're going to do the Desert Island. We are going to do unlimited budget, headphones and mixing. Now, I want to spice it up a bit. I want to kind of see, if there's something that me and Ed pick first, we get it and you don't get it, or something like that. I'd like to maybe put a bit of fun into it, because I think there may be certain things that me and Ed may go for that are the same. Maybe. But
the thing is, though, with the headphone stuff, with the DX7 Pro Plus at £700, that genuinely does compete with the Lynx Hilo 2 at £4,000. The only way to go from there is basically, well, let's discuss it next week, but there is a way to get there that Paul and I have both heard that is so exponentially expensive.
Yeah.
But the difference is audible, right?
Yeah, I suppose so. Don't know.
I mean, it's infinitesimal, but it's
infinitesimal.
Technically in tests we did.
Know what we're going to do, right? Let's scrap speakers and headphones and let's just go, right, all in. Let's just go all in, like unlimited budget, what our mixing setup would be. So we would have multiple headphones. We would be, in a sense, it would basically be very similar to what MSM's got. He's kind of got the Desert Island
You've given me an idea. If you want an ultimate unlimited thing,
right,
we're going deep in next week's episode. I've got some great ideas.
Right, good.
Already.
Right, let's do it. Cool, sweet. And there you have it, right? We'll leave it at that because we and him are now going to have to figure out what this is going to be. But I want to have fun in this channel because Ed's not been feeling well recently. Behind the scenes, I've got a lot of kind of scary health stuff going on. So it's good to have a bit of fun with this podcast. And that's all it is, by the way, right? See you next week. I know it's going to be unlimited and it's like we're trying to get away from gas, gear acquisition syndrome and stuff. But look, we've all got a desert
Like an
island.
expensive gear.
Yeah, I know. Like we've all got desert island stuff, and it's just a bit of fun, right? We are all gear sluts deep down at the end of the day, right? The siren is always going off somewhere when you're in a room of audio engineers. So remember, it's just as a bit of fun. But as last week, leave your comments down below in regards to what your setups would be if you had $5,000 for speakers and headphones. Is there anything else you would like to add, Edward, or are you happy just to go off into the sunset, go away in your pina colada in fucking Thailand and just kind of set off in the sun and mix beautiful records?
Only it's been emotional, as always.
Totally. Bye-bye. Hello, everyone. My name is Ped. Fuck, I was going to say Ped Thorn. Ped Thorn. Fucking Jesus Christ.
People would pay for this.
I know, right, okay. Well, I'll do it this time. Fucking, my name's Paul. Right, okay. Quality, right.